I opened the window of the small hotel room and felt the wind on my face. It was early afternoon, and the city below was loud and busy. People walked fast on the pavement, students rode bicycles past the shops, and buses stopped again and again near the university gates. I was tired after a long week at work, so I drove from my home near Brighton to Oxford for a quiet weekend. I wanted time to breathe and think. My name is Claire Morgan, and I am 50 years old. I own a small but successful design company. I spent many years building it, and I worked day and night to make it strong. People see me as confident, tidy, and independent. They notice my clothes and my shoes and the calm way I carry myself. Many think I have a perfect life, but in truth I felt lonely most days. I lived alone, and sometimes I felt like a guest inside my own home. That afternoon, after checking into the hotel, I walked to a university cafe I knew well. I often came here when I needed quiet energy. The cafe was always full of young people. They studied, laughed, and talked about their future plans. Watching them made me feel peaceful, and sometimes I felt young again. I ordered a coffee and sat near the window. The sunlight shone through the glass and warmed my hands. For a few minutes, everything felt simple and calm. As I lifted my cup, I noticed a young man standing near the counter. He looked about 25. His hair was dark, and the curls fell slightly over his forehead. His clothes were clean but old. He checked the menu, then looked inside his wallet. His shoulders lowered a little and his mouth tightened. He looked hungry but unsure. He did not ask for help. He did not look at anyone. He simply stood there with quiet worry in his eyes. I watched him for a moment. Something inside me moved. I knew that feeling of worry. I knew what it was like to wonder if you had enough. I remembered my early years when I worked in a small shop and tried to save money for classes. I usually never spoke to strangers in public places, but that day felt different. That day I felt something warm and soft in my chest, almost like courage mixed with kindness. I stood up, took a deep breath, and walked to him. When he noticed me, his eyes widened with surprise. His name, as I later learned, was Evan Brooks. He was a student at the university and worked part-time in a bakery to help pay for his studies. His parents lived far away, and he tried not to ask for anything from them. He did not want to worry them. He told me he was having a difficult week and had not eaten breakfast. He spoke quietly and slowly, almost like he was unsure of every word. There was a gentle honesty in his face. I offered to buy him lunch. At first he looked confused. Then he looked almost embarrassed. But there was also something hopeful in his eyes. When he finally agreed, he thanked me in a soft voice that carried more emotion than he probably wanted to show. We sat at a small table, and he ate quickly, almost like he had not eaten for hours. I watched him with a strange feeling in my chest. I felt like I was looking at a younger version of myself, someone who was trying to move forward one small step at a time. We talked for a long time. He told me about his classes, his friends, and his part-time job. He spoke with energy about his dream of becoming a writer. He said he wanted to write stories about real people and real emotions. I listened, and I felt something warm grow inside me. I told him small things about my life, my business, and the quiet evenings in my home. When he laughed at something I said, I felt lighter, almost like my age disappeared for a moment. After that day, I did not expect to see him again. I thought it was a simple moment of kindness that would not return. But 2 days later, when I visited the same cafe, he walked in and saw me. His face lit up with a bright smile. It surprised me how warm I felt when I saw him. He asked if he could join me, and I said yes. We talked again, and time passed without me noticing. Soon it became a pattern. Every week we met for coffee or took a quiet walk through the park behind the library. Sometimes we sat near the river and watched the water move under the bridge. Everything about those moments felt easy and safe. Evan liked to listen. He asked questions about my work and about the life I built. Sometimes I felt shy when I answered because he looked at me like my words mattered more than I believed. He told me about his dreams and the stories he wanted to write. He said he wanted to write about bravery, loss, and hope. I told him that I understood those themes well. As the weeks passed, something changed in the air between us. I felt it first when we walked through the park one afternoon. The trees were full of green leaves and the sky was soft and pale. A breeze moved through the branches. Evan walked beside me and reached out to touch my hand for a moment. It was brief, but it felt warm and gentle. I did not pull away. He did it again another day, and his fingers stayed around mine for a little longer. I told myself that it was nothing. I told myself he was young and kind, and maybe he trusted me. But inside, a new feeling began to grow. One late afternoon, after a long walk by the river, he brushed a piece of hair away from my face. The touch was slow and careful. I felt my breath catch in my throat. He looked at me with calm eyes and said that being with me made him feel stronger. I looked away because the feeling inside my chest was too heavy and too warm at the same time. I felt confused by my own heart. I was older, experienced, and usually careful. Yet near him, I felt young and open. I felt like my life had opened a small door to something new. At night, I thought about him more than I wanted to admit. I thought about his gentle voice, his jokes, and the way he listened to me with full attention. I felt something change inside me, something soft, hopeful, and dangerous. I tried to tell myself that this connection was only friendship, but deep inside I knew it was becoming more. I knew this path was risky for someone my age, yet I did not want to step away from it. I spent the next week in a mix of excitement and doubt. Every time I saw him, the confusion grew. Every time he stood close to me, I felt a warm pull that I could not ignore. I tried to keep my thoughts simple, but my heart did not listen. I felt alive in a way I had not felt for years. And then one quiet evening, everything between us finally changed. Before I continue with the story, please like, subscribe, share, and let me know in the comments where you are listening from. Your support means a lot. Now, let's continue. The evening air was cool when we left the small restaurant near the river. The sky was turning blue and gray, and the streetlights made soft circles of light on the pavement. We walked slowly because neither of us wanted the evening to end. I felt my heart beating faster than usual, and I wondered if he could hear it. I tried to stay calm and think about something simple, but nothing in my mind was simple anymore. I felt excited and afraid at the same time. We reached a quiet street near the college gardens. The area was peaceful, and the smell of wet grass floated through the air. Evan stopped walking and turned to face me. His eyes were soft and warm. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I felt the world around me become still. He stepped closer and placed his hand on my cheek. His touch was gentle and careful. I felt my whole body respond to it. My breath became slower and deeper. I knew what was coming, and I felt a wave of fear and desire together. I closed my eyes and let myself feel the moment instead of thinking about it. Evan kissed me. It was quiet and slow at first, almost like he was asking a question that did not need words. Then the kiss grew deeper. I felt a warmth move through my chest. I tried to forget the world outside that moment. I tried to forget our age difference, the opinions of others, and the long, careful life I had built. When he kissed me, I felt new again. It felt like my heart had opened after years of silence. When the kiss ended, I felt lightheaded. I could not speak. He looked at me with hopeful eyes, and I felt my heart open more than I expected. I knew the choice I was making, and I knew the risks. But in that moment, the emotion inside me felt stronger than the fear. That night changed the way I saw everything. It changed the way I saw him, the way I saw myself, and the way I saw the future. Over the next days, our meetings became more frequent. We spent time walking through quiet streets, sitting in small cafes, and watching the river move slowly under the bridge. Sometimes we sat close and said nothing. Sometimes we talked for hours about dreams and fears. When he laughed, I felt a warm pulse inside me. When he told me stories about his childhood, I felt protective of him. When he looked tired from work and study, I wanted to help him rest. It surprised me how quickly he became important to me. I felt like he entered my life through a small door and then filled every corner of my heart. One weekend, he took my hand while we sat on a bench near the old bookshop. His fingers were warm and steady. He looked at me with a kind expression. I told myself not to fall too deeply, yet I already had. He said that being with me made him feel seen and understood. He said he felt stronger when we were together. I felt touched by his words. I wanted to believe everything he said. I wanted to believe that this young man cared for me, not for what I owned, but for who I was. At that time, it felt true. At that time, his presence felt like a gift. As weeks passed, the relationship grew more emotional. We ate dinner together in small restaurants. We watched films in my living room. He made tea for me in the kitchen and moved with an easy grace that felt natural and comforting. Sometimes he stood behind me and placed his hands on my shoulders, and I felt a deep sense of calm. One night, after a long day of work, I sat on the sofa feeling exhausted. He joined me, placed a blanket over my legs, and rested his head near my shoulder. I felt peaceful in a way I had not felt in many years. He soon began to stay at my house more often. At first it was 1 night a week, then 2. Soon it became normal to see his shoes at the door and his books on the table. I became used to the sound of him moving in the kitchen or walking up the stairs. I liked waking up with the soft sound of his breathing next to me. I began to imagine a future that was warm and hopeful. I knew love could be complicated, but I believed we could build something real. I felt young again each time he held me. One evening, he asked if I wanted to visit Italy with him. He said he wanted a quiet place where we could spend time together without worry. He talked about small streets, warm hills, and simple dinners with fresh bread and fruit. I loved the idea. We planned a short trip for the following month. During that trip, something stronger took shape between us. When we walked through the old village, he held my hand tightly. When we ate dinner outside, he looked at me like I was the most important person in his world. The warmth of the Italian sun made everything feel soft and unreal. On the last evening of the trip, we sat on a hill with a view of the sea. The sky was golden and the air felt warm against my skin. Evan turned to me with an expression filled with emotion. He told me he loved me. His voice was steady and full of feeling. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. He asked if I would marry him. At first I laughed because it felt sudden and surprising, but when I saw the serious look in his eyes, I felt my heart move. He said he loved who I was and not what I owned. He said he wanted a life with me. I let myself trust him. I agreed to marry him. We had a small ceremony in Italy. There were no guests. Only the sea, the warm sun, and a quiet moment between the two of us. I wore a simple white dress and held a small group of flowers I bought that morning. He wore a light shirt and looked handsome under the soft sun. When we exchanged rings, I felt like I was stepping into a new life filled with hope. I truly believed our story would be beautiful. I believed love had come to me late, but it had come in a real and warm way. For a few weeks after the wedding, everything felt perfect. Evan woke up smiling and kissed my forehead each morning. He prepared breakfast with soft music playing in the background. He followed me around the house with gentle affection. He sent small notes to my phone during the day. He whispered loving words whenever he walked past me. I felt safe and happy. I let myself enjoy the feeling without questioning it. I wanted to trust what I had built with him. It felt like a precious gift. But slowly a small shadow appeared. One evening he came home looking tense. He held his phone tightly in his hand. His face had lost all color. His eyes looked worried. When I asked what was wrong, he sat down slowly and took a deep breath. He told me that his former girlfriend had contacted him. Her name was Lila. He said she was angry and wanted to cause trouble. He said she wanted to tell the police lies about him. He said she wanted to tell people he married me for money. His voice shook as he spoke. He looked scared and ashamed. He looked like he wanted protection. I felt a mixture of fear and sympathy. I believed he was in trouble. I believed he needed me. I asked what she wanted. He said she wanted money to stay quiet. He said he hated asking me for help. He said he was ashamed. I felt my heart soften. I felt responsible for him. I wanted to protect our new life. I gave him money because I believed it would keep him safe. He held me close, kissed my forehead, and whispered that I had saved him. I felt needed. I felt important. I did not know that this moment was the beginning of something dark. I did not know that this was the first thread of a long, hidden plan. At that time, I only saw the fear in his face and the trust in his eyes. I wanted to help him. I wanted to protect our love. I could not imagine that the truth behind his fear was something entirely different. I could not imagine the storm that waited for me in the future. After the first payment, I hoped everything would become quiet again. I wanted to return to the soft mornings, the warm smiles, and the calm evenings when Evan rested his head on my shoulder. For a short time, things did feel normal. He acted gentle and loving. He made tea for me and told me small stories from his classes. I wanted to believe that the trouble was over. I wanted peace so strongly that I ignored the small signs that something was slowly changing. 2 weeks later, he came home late. His face looked tired, and his hands were shaking. He sat down on the edge of the sofa, and I felt a cold wave of worry. He said that Lila had contacted him again. He said she wanted more money. He said she was angry and wanted to ruin him. His voice sounded weak, and he looked at me with sad eyes. I felt my heart soften again, even though something inside me felt slightly wrong. I pushed that feeling away because I loved him and because he looked so afraid. I told myself that love meant helping the person you chose, so I helped again. The next month brought more strange moments. Sometimes he walked around the house with tense shoulders and quiet steps. Sometimes he said nothing all evening. When I asked what was wrong, he looked down and spoke in a low voice about new threats. He said he was trying to fix everything. Each time he asked for help, I believed him because I wanted our life to stay whole. I gave him money again and again. I tried to stay calm, but I felt something dark moving slowly through our home. I felt like I was losing control without understanding how. One morning I woke up to an empty room. The side of the bed where he slept felt cold. I waited a few minutes, thinking he was in the kitchen or the bathroom. When I did not hear any sound, I got up and walked through the house. Each room was quiet. Too quiet. His shoes were not by the door. His jacket was gone. I opened the wardrobe and saw empty spaces where his clothes had been. I felt a strange pressure in my chest. I called his name even though the silence already felt final. I checked his phone, but it was switched off. I went to my computer and opened my bank accounts. At first, I only saw a few numbers that looked strange. Then I saw more. The money was missing in careful steps. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. I checked my company accounts and felt the blood drain from my face. More money had disappeared month by month. I sat on the floor and covered my face with my hands. I understood the truth in one painful moment. There was no Lila. There were no threats. There was only a long and quiet lie. For days I felt empty. I could not think clearly. I could not believe that I had trusted someone who studied my heart before he broke it. But slowly I stood up again. I protected my company. I asked for help from my team. I rebuilt what I lost. The pain stayed, but I learned something important. Love can feel warm and bright, yet sometimes it hides a truth that is quiet and sharp. Now I live near the sea. I am careful and stronger. I still believe in kindness, but I also believe in listening to the small voice inside that warns us when something feels wrong. It is a hard lesson, but it is mine. If you liked my story, please like, comment, and share.